Hey guys, Piff here, and I'm going to give you guys my Origins Endgame cutscene Easter egg breakdown. I'm going to assume by now most of you guys have seen it, but if you haven't, I recommend doing the Easter egg for yourself. It's much more rewarding. I'll have an annotation or a link across the top to an advanced tutorial that I did on the Easter egg. But yeah, so there's going to be spoilers in this, so if you haven't seen it, I recommend doing the Easter egg. But if you have and you want a breakdown, come on in, let's do it. So I'm going to get into it first. Now, the first thing after watching it is we realize that Samantha is a little girl and she's playing with her friend Eddie, and they are playing with toys. Now, a lot of people are jumping to conclusions and just assuming that Eddie is Richtofen because, Richtofen had a lot of nicknames, whether it was Ed, Ted, Eddie, whatever it may be. Now, I want to be on record for saying that I'm not 100% down with just saying that is Richtofen. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why that would make sense that it's not Richtofen. I mean, the age difference. He's playing with himself. Samantha doesn't have her own toy. There's a lot of things. Maybe possibly he's Richtofen's son. Maybe he's Teddy. That's why Teddy is a liar. It kind of got mixed in with Richtofen, and people assumed that was Richtofen because he was playing as Richtofen, but that doesn't mean that was actually Richtofen that was narrating or doing all that stuff. So I'm not 100% down with that. But for what we saw in the endgame cutscene, it does make sense as well. It could go either way. And I think for the sake of this breakdown, I'm just going to say that it is Richtofen. So, first off, one thing that I want to notice is the toys that they are playing with. Now, Samantha says, "It's my turn, Eddie. I do what I want." Eddie's basically saying, "You don't know what you're doing. You don't know how to play with the toys. You're doing it all wrong." And one thing that I found very interesting, and I don't think people have been pointing out, is that Eddie is playing with Richtofen and Takiel. Now, in the beginning, when it first started, Sam had Tank in her hand, and she knocked over a red-eyed zombie. And then she got to this cowboy zombie, and she knocked him over. Now, this has been bothering me for a while. I cannot figure out why. The zombie storyline was starting to make sense with this, but then when it got to the knocking over the cowboy zombie, this has thrown me off, and it doesn't make sense to me. And I'll explain it in a little bit why. I'll get into that in a second, but this is a zombie from Buried, so it doesn't make sense to me how this zombie is here at this point in time when this happens. I don't know if it was a mistake, but it just doesn't make sense with everything that's going on. I'll touch on that in a second. Maybe I'm mistaken, maybe it's a zombie from Shangri-La, but it definitely looks like Buried to me, and it's been throwing me for a loop, and I cannot understand unless the infinite time loop theory is correct, and this is just another infinite time loop. It really doesn't make sense to me, and I'll explain that in a second. So, basically what Sam does is she knocks over the red-eyed zombie from Mob of the Dead, and then she knocks over the buried zombie, and this is with Tank Dempsey, and then she puts him down to the side, and that's where we watch the whole perspective from, and then she picks up Nikolai. And I found this very interesting because they're basically talking about how they are playing with the zombies and all that stuff like that, and when I think about it, if kids are playing with toys and stuff like that, does this mean that, Eddie was in control of Richtofen and Takiel, and Sam was in control of Nikolai and Tank and herself and all that stuff like that? Because that would make sense to me, because think about it. If, kids are playing with toys, if I was to battle you with toys or play with toys, I'd be controlling the one that's in my hand. So maybe that's why I kind of got mixed up and I kind of got confused with the Nikolai and the red eyes, because technically Sam was in control. And if Sam was in control of Nikolai, that could kind of explain why I kind of was onto something, and it kind of got me mixed up, is because basically it was kind of like the same people controlling them, because she controls Nikolai, and she was the one in control of the zombies at that time period, as we find out by this end cutscene. So I thought that was very interesting, the toys that they were playing with. Next thing that happens is they hear the horn, and Maxis, Samantha's father, says, "Come to the bunker," and all this stuff like that. Now, when I watched the cutscene for the very first time, I freaked out when I heard this horn. And I know more people have caught on to it now, but that was the very first thing that stuck out to me when watching this, is because I spent so much time on Nuketown. And it started to make sense to me. The zombie storyline was starting to make sense. Basically, I don't know if you guys realize, but the Nuketown horn goes off. Samantha's dad, Maxis, says, "Come to the bunker." So basically, what is happening, and then Eddie says, "I didn't even get to get my turn," and Sam says, "Tomorrow, Eddie." So basically, the way that I interpret this was basically everything up to Black Ops 2 was Sam's turn, and it was her in control, playing with the zombies, with Eddie, and all that good stuff. And now, after Black Ops 2, like Transit on was basically what happened after this, this part right here. They went to the bunker, whatever happened, and they came back. It's now Eddie's turn, and that's why Richtofen is in control, and that's why we have these new characters and all that stuff like that. And it was starting to make sense to me. And also, when they were walking out of the room, you get a screenshot where you could see the new crew off to the side, and that kind of made sense to me as well as to why on Nuketown we could hear Marlton in the bunker. Is, he's off to the side, he's not playing. It's almost kind of like Toy Story-ish, he wanted to get into the game. He's off to the side, but he's not really playing. That's why we could kind of hear him in the bunker. So everything was starting to kind of make sense to me. It was like, okay, everything up to Black Ops 2 Transit was Sam in control. She was in control during Mob of the Dead, Origins, but all those other maps with the new characters was Eddie's turn. It was him playing. But once again, that comes back to what I was just talking to you guys about on how that she was knocking over the cowboy zombie. How that didn't make sense to me is, how could she knock over that zombie if that wasn't during that time period up to Nuketown and Moon? That didn't really make sense to me, So that's something that has me a little thrown off right there. It's really confusing. I don't really get that part right there. But something else that's interesting, touching on the new crew and the picture of them, is when they were leaving the room, they had this little bottle or the end of the leg where they're keeping track of their tallies. And it says Eddie has 10 tallies and then Sam has 20. So I started to think about it. I was like, what could they possibly be keeping track of? And I started to think about it. Maybe it was maps and control that they had. And I was like, okay, that doesn't make sense. We don't have 30 zombie maps. Then I started to think about it. What if possibly it's like things they were in control of? Whether it's different characters, like maybe the monkey bombs for Sam, the bosses. I started to do that, and I don't know, that didn't really make sense to me that much. And then I started to think about it. I'm like, what else do we have tallies for? And I started to think of it, I do a lot of videos on the ranking system, and it came back to me, and I was like, what if possibly this is something that has to do with like the ranking system? Maybe total number of days that they were in control or something. Maybe that has something to do with the time loop and stuff like that. Like if they went into a full time loop, that was a tally, or like a day in control or something like that. I'm not sure. It still doesn't make sense to me because technically Eddie wasn't in control yet. So how was he able to get 10 tallies up to Nuketown? So that's a big mystery right there. If we're able to figure that out and figure out, what these tallies represent, I feel like that would explain a lot. But so yeah, basically the way that I interpret it is basically everything up to Black Ops 2 was Sam in control. Then they go to the bunker, which is Nuketown Moon for us. And then something happens, and like, I had a theory about this, and I almost put the video out where I thought that this map, and I'm glad I didn't, because it obviously wasn't on this map. It'll obviously be Black Ops 3 or whatever we do get. Yeah, guys, it's not the end of zombies. A lot of people think that, zombies is done. I mean, they could. I mean, it's up to them. They could end it right now and just, it'd probably be something like, that would cause a lot of hysteria in the community and stuff like that, but they could end it and just go down as one of the greatest things. We just never knew, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's far from over. There's so much they could still do. But basically, so we have this huge gap and void from Moon and Nuketown to what happens in Transit, and that's basically where this end cutscene leaves us. And we have this huge circle, something that could happen. Like, I was thinking maybe like a Transit map that involved Area 51, Nuketown, and possibly it connected to Buried. I don't know, but I was thinking that there would be like some type of Transit map in that area, and it could be something like maybe we'll start off with like a 3 vs 3 grief where it's like the old crew versus the new crew, and that's how we decide who gets to carry on or something like that. Because there is a huge gap. There's a lot they could still explain. This end cutscene didn't explain it all, so they could still carry on with the zombie storyline. Like I said, there's that huge void that I would love to see what happened, after this, what happened, and what carried on, with Eddie, getting into control and all that stuff. How did that happen? So that's one thing. And then when she closes the door, she goes, Eddie says something along the lines like, I wish these characters were real. The people in our story were real. And Sam goes, yeah, I know, Eddie. And then when she closes the door, she says something like, my dad says he has a plan. Now, this was very interesting to me. everybody that was ever able to predict this type of outcome, and trust me, there were people that predicted something along these lines. I have a friend that, like Jason, we used to joke about, what if like it just ended with like it was Sam like reading a cartoon book and stuff like that. A lot of people had this theory because the loading screens had, pages from look like a cartoon or a comic or a book or something like that. So there were people that predicted something like this. But I looked through this whole trailer and I could not find a book for the life of me. And that was very interesting to me. I'm like, how did we have these pages? Now, this is a theory that I have. I talked to some friends. I think my friend Amar had the same theory. He did a video about that. I'll put a link in the annotation description for him. His friend Scornful Blade, we talked about it. I mean, I had this theory, but we talked about it with them as well. But what if possibly when she says, my dad says he has a plan, what if possibly that plan was Maxis watching her daughter and her friend play zombies, and he's making a comic or a book about it or something like that? That's just a theory or a possibility I have, because this didn't explain to me why the pages in the loading screen and all that stuff like that. So I feel like there's still going to be a huge twist. There's still stuff that they could do. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, for instance, I was right about, I was wrong about a lot of things when it came to this stuff, but there was some things I was right about, like wink wink, the Easter egg, the steps. I was like a map off. I was a campaign map off, but I did call that months ago. And I actually might do a video about that. I think that I have a good theory about that as well, as like why that may be. But I just want to wrap this video up. That was pretty much everything that I saw from this end cutscene that I thought was, worthy of talking about, and some stuff to break down. If you enjoyed it, if you could subscribe, I greatly appreciate that. Everybody, let me know what you guys think, if you found anything interesting. I mean, obviously there's stuff all around the room that relates to the maps and all that stuff like that. But if there's anything you guys think or you saw or anything, just let me know. I'll be reading through the comments. I'm interested to hear your guys' theories as well. And if you guys get an up rating, that's much appreciated. And more videos coming soon. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.